Hello. I am so excited to be talking to my friend, Dr. Cleopatra Abdu-Kamperveen, today about tracking your cycle like a pro. So she is going to join us momentarily. Hi, Jessica. So fun to have you. And here she is. Okay, so let's Cleopatra.
Hi, my love. Hey there.
Oh, I'm so happy to see you.
I'm so happy to see you. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
We're so good. We've been on a wild adventure, just like
Yeah,
you have. So
yeah.
our families are kind of doing similar things right now, which is super exciting.
Oh my God. So you like went to Portugal, what, a week ago?
A week ago, almost exactly a week ago. And it's just magical here. And Luxor has already made the team on his second day of tryouts, about 10 minutes into his second day of tryouts, which was one of the main catalysts for us being here.
Yeah,
And so it's just really exciting, just a really beautiful time in our life. I'm so thankful.
that's amazing. I'm overjoyed for you. I hope to come visit you in Portugal.
We cannot wait for you to come visit. Come visit us. And I'm sorry we missed each other in Miami
I
when
know.
we were like ships crossing in the night, but we will get together soon. And I can't wait for that. And you look amazing and you've been doing amazing things. And the Origin Company has been doing amazing things. I'm so proud of you. And this way that you are stepping forward even more into your greatness, your amazingness, your leadership. It's really beautiful and powerful to watch.
Cleopatra.
You're so
I
welcome.
feel the same about you.
Thank
So,
you.
for those of you who may not know, Dr. Cleopatra is a giant-hearted scientist who has spent her career, decades, building out a revolutionary protocol for prime mestering, 120 days before you get pregnant. She
Yeah.
and I connect about our mutual love of uteruses.
And uterus art and all of that.
Uterus art.
And
I haven't yet hung my uterus art in Miami, but it will be forthcoming. So today we're going to be talking about, so Cleopatra I know you've been part of my incubator program and then part of my mastermind, and then it gives me the greatest joy, I just have to talk about it, to like see the other day when our friend Danica, who was also part of the Origin Mastermind, when she announced after prime mestering that she was pregnant and that she was at your house when she took the test. And like, these kind of things are the most exciting. It's the best ever.
it was so mind-blowing. So first of all, Danica and I met because of you. And it changed both of our lives. I mean, in such incredible ways. And she and Billy prime mastered with me. And then Danica to help our family move. Am I okay, Kate? I look like I'm freezing up a little
You
bit.
are frozen, but now you're back.
Okay, awesome. I can see the little circle going. So Danica and I became really close friends, and she and Billy were in Los Angeles helping my family and I move. And I went out to get something, and I came back, and she greeted me with her positive pregnancy test, and it was just one of the happiest moments of my life, one of the most beautiful moments of my life. It couldn't have been more beautiful. It was so incredible, and we just kept saying, thank goodness Kate brought us together. It was so meant to be. And for those who have been interested in the mastermind, it has really been life-changing for me. I think when I met you, Kate, I mean, I had been in Origin and I had been following your work for a long time, but when I really got to know you, this must have been 2019 or 2018. You know, at that time, hardly anybody knew about the trimester. Hardly anybody knew about the Fertility and Pregnancy Institute. Hardly anybody knew about the trimester protocol and all of the work we do about me. And now that has changed so much that I checked yesterday morning because I knew I was going to see you. At this moment, we have 710 families primestering at this moment.
It's a lot.
It is. It is. It used to mean it's been such a labor of love. You talked about for decades. So in September, I just celebrated a quarter of a century of doing this work formally. And I just turned 43. So to say I've been doing something for a quarter of a century is kind of hilarious, but it's true.
Hi,
And
Jessica. She's here.
oh, she's here. We are just talking about you. Hi, my love. We are just celebrating super baby girl Haley and her beautiful parents. Oh my God, it's so exciting. We love you so much. And so to think a quarter of a century, and it's just been this incredible labor of love, because for so long, you know, I was in the lab, I was doing the work, working with families one-on-one, and I had this vision, but until people knew about us, I couldn't come anywhere near the vision that I had for the trimester and for FPI. And so I just want to say thank you, and I love you so much for so many reasons. You've been an amazing mentor and friend to me, and so many more super babies have come into this world because of you, because you've helped to spread the message. You've helped to amplify my voice, and I'm just so thankful for that. So if anybody's considering the Origin community, the collective, which is such an incredible group of women entrepreneurs and female identifying entrepreneurs, if anyone's considering the mastermind that Kate runs, I mean, those things have genuinely been life-changing for me.
Thank you. It's such a beautiful, like, so being, you know, and I know it's the same for you, Cleopatra. It's like you do this one piece and then you see how it can impact, you know, and help along. It's like one piece, but then it is so much bigger than
it ripples.
And it's very beautiful. That's all I can say. And it's very humbling to have anything to do with any of it. And I'm so grateful that I got chosen to do this work. I'm so grateful that you got chosen to do your work. And I want to talk about it in the context of, so Cleopatra and I were talking, I think it was last summer or something, and she had offered to create a bonus for our Origin members, because one of the things Cleopatra knows how to do in a way that nobody else, literally nobody else teaches, is to track your biomarkers and your data collection with your cycle to know with basically perfect precision exactly when you are fertile. And in the work that I do, I don't teach people how to get pregnant. However, I do teach people how to align their workflow with their cycle for peak creativity, peak productivity, and also peak restoration. Yeah. And so you had offered this because I think most of us just sort of track our cycle and we're like, yeah, I know when I'm bleeding and I like vaguely know when I'm ovulating.
Yes.
If you want to get pregnant, that won't work. But also,
exactly.
If you want to really dial in to that next level of like knowing when you're follicular, knowing when you're ovulating, knowing when you're luteal, like really getting to know your body on that level is such a profound gift. So I am curious, first of all, I want to ask you, what are the ways that we're either taught by our doctor or just sort of the media and, you know, wellness sites to track that maybe aren't as accurate or aren't serving us that we might think they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I think this is such an important question. And I just want to say that the cycle tracking conversation is relevant to you, even if you aren't cycling currently or you've completed cycling in your life. So if you're pregnant or you're nursing or you're in menopause, then the tracking conversation is still relevant to you. So you would use a different way. It would be more like with the phases of the moon or the weeks of the month. But if you're someone who is still menstruating, if you're someone who's still ovulating, then there's a deeper way to go into this. So I think that's the first thing that people don't tell us, that cyclical living matters even once we stop cycling in our lives, or if we're not cycling currently because we're pregnant or breastfeeding. And most people don't know that when you're breastfeeding, you're semi-menopausal, which is why you don't cycle and which is why it's harder to get pregnant. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get pregnant and you can't rely on breastfeeding for birth control. So PSA, I want to make sure everyone knows that, because sometimes people are really caught off guard and surprised when they get pregnant and they're still breastfeeding and even exclusively breastfeeding. So that's number one. Number two is that we think of the time when we're bleeding as being the time when there's all the action in our cycles, because it's the time that everybody talks about, and it must be that time of the month. It's the time that we're most aware of because we have these outward symptoms, but it's actually the part of the cycle that has the least going on in terms of underlying biomarkers and hormonal shifts. So I just want to make sure that people know that as well. So what's really important to know is that when we're ovulating and as we're approaching ovulation, we're super powerful. But not everybody ovulates on the 14th day of the month or their cycle. Not everybody has a 28-day cycle. And not everyone ovulates the same day each month, which means there's within woman variability and there's also within cycle variability. So what's really important to know about that in practical terms is if you're using an app to track your ovulation, whether you're using it for pregnancy prevention or pregnancy achievement, or you just want to know how to sync up with your cycle better according to the work that you teach, Kate, then that app may not be giving you accurate information, because that app is based on averages. It's based on averages for the population of people it's serving as a whole, and it's also based on your averages. And any one cycle or any one month may be very closely may closely approximate your average or may be very different from your average. So you can't rely on that for definitive data. That's really important to know. So I would say that's the second thing.
That is so important to know. And I've noticed for myself, because I love tracking my cycle. I ovulate like typically on like day 8 or 9. I'm an early ovulator, even though my cycle, sometimes I don't get my period until like day 27. So I'm so happy that you're sharing it, because we've just not been given great information about our bodies. What's passed down is just not always accurate. It's not always helpful.
I have goosebumps as I listen to you say that. We're not given great information about our bodies. And that's so important. I mean, I have 3 super babies, and I talk to my children now about their bodies. And I talk to my daughter now about her cycle that she's going to have, and how her bleeding is her power. And I think this is really important. And our menstrual cycles are the full cycle, not just the time that we're bleeding, are a critical vital sign, like our temperature, like our heart rate, like our blood pressure. But think about it. It's the only vital sign. My nose is running a little because I got emotional, so excuse me. It's the only vital sign. It's true. It's the only vital sign that we don't start measuring as soon as it becomes available. And that is a huge mistake. And it's a huge failure of our society that we're not taught to do that as people who bleed. So think about it. The minute you have a heartbeat, it's monitored. That's the first thing you look for when you get pregnant. You go, you have an ultrasound, they look for the heartbeat because that's the number one vital sign that tells you the health of that pregnancy, the health of that baby. When you're in labor, they're monitoring your baby's heart rate to make sure that your baby's doing well. I have such goosebumps, so much emotion. To make sure your baby is doing well in the birthing process. If they see that heart rate drop, you better believe you're going in for an emergency C-section right then and there. When your baby is born, one of the first things they do is take your baby's temperature and measure your baby's blood pressure. These are all vital signs, and the second they become available, we measure them because they're such an important indicator of what's going on the inside of the health of the organism. And our periods and our cycles as a whole are that critical, but nobody tells us to pay attention to them. In fact, what we try to do is ignore them as much as possible. Ignore our fertility and avoid it so that we don't get pregnant when we don't mean to. Make our periods as short as possible, or even maybe go away by taking the pill. But we're missing really critical pieces of information about ourselves. And that's why it's so important what you teach, Kate, because what you teach is to tap into the power that comes with each of those phases so that you can produce to the best of your ability and rest to the best of your ability and capitalize on that innate power. And if we want to do this differently, which I hope we all do, we want to for ourselves and for our daughters and our granddaughters, we'll teach them differently. We won't teach them when your period comes, go get on the pill so that you don't have cramps. How about paying attention to the cramps and what they're telling you? Like maybe blood sugar regulation is an issue. Maybe more movement is needed. Maybe breathing exercises are needed, right? Those things matter. And we want to teach our children and our grandchildren different so that we shift the cultural conversation around our fertility and the signs of our fertility.
Yes. I love you so much.
I love you so much too. I love you so much too.
I also want to say hi. I saw Titi Lio joined and also Eliza.
Hello, everybody.
So, why is being able to harness our fertility so important, both for getting pregnant or not getting pregnant, but also like for our lives? Like, what is it about our fertility that matters so much? No matter, like, yes, for babies, but even regardless of babies.
So important. I mean, let's just like zoom all the way in and talk about a piece of minutia. Everybody thinks that everyone thinks that the hormone progesterone is just for getting pregnant, staying pregnant, making babies. Your brain needs progesterone to function properly. If you are deficient in progesterone, you're much more likely to be anxious and not be able to manage stress. I mean, that's just one, and so many other functions of progesterone, but that's just one tiny example. If we zoom out a little bit and look at the bigger picture, our fertility is made up of a complex network that includes all of the other systems and organs and parts of our bodies and ourselves. Our brain is the number one fertility organ, not the uterus, not the ovaries. Our digestion is the mother of our fertility.
Really?
If our digestion isn't working well, and especially if our microbiome doesn't have the richness and diversity, our microbiome, by the way, is our second genome. If we don't have the richness and diversity in our microbiome, we are much less likely to be fertile as we want to be. And we are also much less likely to be able to do a lot of other things that we want to do. For example, if there are people listening who feel like they're really prone to depression or anxiety, or just not being able to manage their stress levels, their thoughts, their emotions. It has been shown in scientific data that what we think of as being our personality is largely determined by the makeup of our microbiome, which means if you are someone who, I know it's crazy, so which means if you are someone who has suffered from anxiety and depression, that your gut needs your attention. And it may be as simple as that to help you get out of that cycle. And that is directly related, it's both directly and indirectly related to our fertility, because we see that people who have a history of depression, anxiety, difficulty managing stress are more likely to have difficulty getting and or staying pregnant. So more likely to have difficulty with fertility and pregnancy, and more than likely that operates through the central nervous system. And what the HPA axis in particular, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenocortical axis, which is our body stress response system. And you can think of it like an alarm system. So what you want from an alarm system is that you want it to work well. You want it to go off when it's supposed to go off to alert you to a problem. And then you want it to shut off immediately when things are resolved. If you have an alarm system that is going off constantly, chronically, we call that chronic stress. You're living in a chronic state of fight or flight, of emergency, of trauma, then what's happening is your system is becoming so dysregulated that you may have difficulty having the right type of response in the future. And you might see that in your cortisol patterns, your diurnal cortisol rhythm. And so these are just some examples of the pathways through which our fertility, our cycles, and our fertility in general, our fertility system as a whole, affect our mental and physical health, every single part of it. But here's the most important thing. Research has shown that women who have irregular periods are more likely to die early. Finally, research has paid attention to the fact that our cycles are such an important vital sign that they're predictive of our lifespan. On top of that, women who stay fertile longer are more likely to live longer. It's because the age of your reproductive system is an important indicator of your biological age, which is what will predict how long you live. Right? We know this because we see people, right? We see them on their face. Do they look old for their age? Do they look about their age? Do they look young for their age? If we could open people up and look inside, we would see the same thing in their fertility system and in their biology overall. And so what we want is to pay attention to our cycles, so that if they're screaming to us that something is not going well, that we can pay attention, because that is going to impact not only our mental health, our physical health, our brain span, how well our brain is working for how long, but also our longevity. Fertility and longevity, they go like this. They are so intimately tied to one another. Women who have children after the age of 33 are twice as likely to live to the age of 90 as women who finish having children by the age of 30.
Wow. Well, that's me.
Yes, exactly. Me
Cool.
too. And it's incredibly important. The other thing that I want to say is that we are really misled to think that it is so easy to get pregnant. There's actually only one 24-hour period in an entire cycle when you can conceive. Because it doesn't mean you're only fertile for that one 24-hour period, but in order to get pregnant, for an egg to be fertilized, the egg has to be present. The egg only lives for 12 to 24 hours. That means that you are only fertile for that one day plus the other days of the cycle, where if you have sex, the sperm can still be alive in your reproductive tract. to be available to meet the egg when it's released during ovulation. So that is about, we've historically said that is 6 days a month, or a cycle. I say a cycle and a month interchangeably, even though they're not one and the same. I just want to point that out. So we are told that an average cycle is 28 days long. It's actually a little over 29 days long, and it's getting longer because people's cycles are becoming less healthy over time. More and more women have polycystic ovarian syndrome because of issues with blood sugar and insulin resistance, and also the impact of higher BMI on our cycles. And this is not a judgment, because we are a body positive space. You know me, I'm a tall woman with all the curves. This is not a judgment. It's just that we know from the scientific data so clearly, it's unequivocal that there's a fertile zone for BMI, and it's 20 to 24 plus or minus 1. So if you're in 19 to 25 range, that's considered the fertile zone. Below it or above it, it's going to be much harder to have a healthy cycle, which, remember, is predictive of how long you'll live, but it's also going to be much harder to get and or stay pregnant. And here's the thing. In this world, I lived in Los Angeles for many years, and in this world where we get the message that a certain body type is the beautiful body type, and we're depriving ourselves, we're restricting food, we're working out really hard, being below the fertile zone of BMI is even more consequential than being above the fertile zone of BMI. So some of the things that we think of as being quote unquote healthy are not healthy for our cycles and for our fertility. And that includes overtraining, that includes restricting food, and that includes having too little body fat.
That's so important.
So important.
You are like, wow, the wealth of information. And I know I want to shout out to Jocelyn. I see you here. Hi, Jocelyn, and also Claire and Jackie. Jocelyn asked, is like, where can people, if somebody's just like, oh my gosh, I want to know all of this. First of all, obviously, you know, you can join Origin. You'll get the Track Your Cycle like a bonus. It's a great place to start. But also, I just want to say, and I'm going to put the link here if you want to do that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But if this stuff's like published on your website, I guess people should just get on your email list. Is that the best?
Absolutely. I mean, if you want to learn about these kinds of things, there's no better place in the world. And every week we're sending out information. We have lots of free workshops. We have lots of opportunities for you to learn and for you to implement. But also, I have a beautiful bonus for the Origin Collective. So if you're joining Origin, you'll get very detailed information for collecting your biomarkers. I teach you how to do it in a way that isn't available anywhere else in the world. If you are just wanting to sync up with your productivity and your rest, you will be doing that meticulously. If you want to get pregnant, you will be so much farther along. And also, if you're hoping not to get pregnant, this will support you in doing that as well. Now, remember, if you are on some form of hormonal birth control, that is going to impact your biomarkers, because it's not the natural state of your body, so your readings will not be entirely accurate. So then you may want to go back to syncing up with the moon or using the weeks of the month or whatever. Sorry for my runny nose, everyone. I should know to have tissues with me when I'm having these conversations.
I know. I've gotten teary 3 times.
Yeah, I get so deeply emotional. I mean, because we love this stuff so much, because it matters so much, and because nobody is telling people. You know, nobody told us when we were young. The only reason I had any awareness was because I lost my own mother at birth. My beautiful mother was only 27 years old, and I just know that, well, number one, God put me here to do what I'm doing. But number two, if my mother had had this kind of access to this kind of information and support, she would be alive right now. you know, and her life wouldn't have been cut so short, and she wouldn't have had to give her life so that I could have my life. And so it's just, we can't help but be so passionate because we want better. We want better for our sisters, and we want better for our daughters and the people coming after us, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Knowing your body, like it's so interesting because tracking your cycle with biomarkers and data collection, it sounds a little like, you know, but then when you put it in context of all the things that you shared and how powerful it is to have this information, it's so deeply empowering to know where you are in your cycle, to know what's happening hormonally. Like, having this information changes everything.
It changes
So
everything. It
I
changes
really,
it does change everything. Just like you teach, it changes what you do in your business. It changes your relationships. I mean, think about it. We think that we're attracted to, I have made lots of less than stellar romantic decisions in my lifetime. I like boys a lot, and before I was married, I got distracted by them every once in a while. And you know, we think that that those feelings are more significant than they actually are. It's really just about where we are in our cycle, right? We want to know these things so that we make better decisions for every part of our lives. And I think that's so critically important. What you teach is so important. And I can't stress enough, like when you start to learn your body to that degree, and why wouldn't you want to learn your body? What is more important to know with that level of detail than your own body? Then you can make decisions like, wow, at 43, I have the same cycle I had in my 20s, which clues me into the fact that if I want to continue having super babies, I'm going to continue having them. Now, let's take a different scenario. Let's say I've been watching my cycle so closely all this time, and I saw a really big change by the time I turned 30. That would tell me, number one, there's probably something in the way that I'm living that needs to change. And number two, my timeline for having children, if that's something that's deeply important to me, might need to shift. And so these are such important decisions that you're so much more informed about if you take the time to learn your body.
yeah, and I mean, from a practical standpoint, I just think about how much money you'll save.
Yes.
Right? Not needing to go to 800 million doctors. I mean, listen, I come from two doctors. I respect them, and
Yes. Yes.
you get much better medical care when you know what's going on in your own body.
Yes. Yes, you do.
You have to be your own advocate.
You always
So
have to
getting
be
this information, tracking your cycle, knowing where you are, knowing these biomarkers, having this data is so critical for your own empowerment, to know your energy levels, for your lifespan, it turns out.
Yeah.
And so many other things. So I'm just so grateful, Cleopatra, that you're offering this to our Origin members. If you want to join Origin and get the Track Your Cycle Like a Pro with Cleopatra, then you can go to originmembership.com. The doors are open until next Wednesday, the 20th, I think at 8 p.m. Eastern time. But Cleopatra, I also just want people to know where they can connect with you if they're just like, I want to get pregnant.
You're so generous. I want to say, again, that being part of Origin is something that I love and cherish and has been truly life-changing for me. And when you're talking about that ripple that we have, we're humbled to be able to create, because through being part of Origin, now so many more super babies are coming into the world every week and every month. And I mean, if you haven't seen what it looks like when I celebrate a new positive pregnancy test, then please go to either Danica Brycia's Insta or my Insta, and you will catch a glimpse of it, which is really hilarious. I'm like, unfortunately, we were in the middle of moving and I look kind of messy, but who cares, because it was like the best moment ever. And so I think that that's really, really powerful to say, just that being in Origin, learning from you has been life-changing for me. So I highly recommend that people do that. And I know that they will love, love, love the biomarkers bonus, because I get questions and comments about it all the time because people love it so much. So absolutely so excited and honored to be able to contribute that to this community I love so much, and to you, whom I love so much. And if you are somebody who's listening and you want your super baby, you want to get pregnant within the next couple years, you wanted to get pregnant like yesterday and it hasn't happened for you, then please find me at fertilitypregnancy.org. The first thing that you want to do is get our free checklist, which will give you some really awesome tools to start with right away. And I can't wait to support you and to trimester with you and celebrate your super baby with you. Go take a look at the celebration. I'll be doing that for your baby too.
Good. It's so good. I love you, Cleopatra. Thank you for having this conversation. Thank you for everyone who is here. If you're listening to the replay on IGTV and you have a friend who you think would benefit, please go ahead and tag them in the comments. And if you have a follow-up question, go ahead and tag us and we can circle back.
Absolutely.
So, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you so much.
I love you with all my heart. This has been so fun. I'm so happy to be sitting and feel like I'm sitting face to face with you, and all of you beautiful humans who have joined us today. Thank you for being here, and I can't wait to spend more time with you in the very near future.
Amazing. Have a great day in Portugal. Bye.
I will. Thank you. Bye, my love. See you soon.